It is exactly close to 8:01. If I can find my first page, where is it?
One here.
No, I had mine hit my notes. Where is it? Here it is. Sorry. Okay. So, Jan has agreed to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's salute our flag with enthusiasm. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you, Jan. Okay, the agenda has been posted.
It has, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, roll call.
Commissioners Adams,
Present.
Altman excused, Breslin, Budillo, Burke,
Present.
Clarkson,
Here.
Corcoran, Dada,
Here.
Feldman,
Here.
Freemuth,
Yeah.
Kedrick, Kuhn,
Here.
Hughes, here, Pattison, By,
here.
Reason,
Here.
Schmitz,
Here.
Swearell. Thank you.
And Jones, here.
And Jones.
Just for the record, I am here. All right, moving on. Do we have any public, did anyone ask to speak? Peter?
Peter.
Peter, excuse me. Nadia, did anyone ask to speak?
No, sir.
No public comments then. So we move to approval of the minutes, which I hope all of you have read.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Abstain.
2 abstentions, they weren't here. 3, okay, Kathleen wasn't here. Okay. We move now to the chairman's report. It will be brief. One of my problems, and it's something I wasn't aware of, the Brown Act is specific that you can't have more members on a committee than the majority total of the commission, which means no committee can have more than 9 members. And the problem that we had is the marketing committee. There was so much interest in that. I have taken myself off of that because I'll be able to still attend the meeting and hear the discussion, and I'll have a chance to vote. And Paul Badillo graciously agreed to step down from that. But I still need one more person to step down. If you're on the marketing committee and would like to think about it and then talk to me afterwards, I would appreciate that. Otherwise, I'm just going to have to make an executive decision and pull one person off so that we're in compliance with the Brown Meeting Act. So I thought I would just give you that update. You have the monthly passenger activity report that was passed out this morning. It looks like at the current rate we might exceed 2.4 million passengers, the way it's going. That's kind of good news. It creates additional stress on the airport, clearly. The marketing committee met on November the 7th, and you're going to hear a report from Peter later on the agenda. We've agreed that the marketing committee will schedule their meetings at least quarterly.
Yep.
Provided there's an agenda, so Peter will handle that as chair. And then I've asked 2 people to do the 3-minute kind of, gosh, here I'm on the commission and here's why and what I enjoy. So we'll start with Jan, and then we'll go to Patricia Breslin.
Only 3 minutes? No.
You can, actually it slides more to 5 or 6. We've got a light agenda, so if you want to talk 20
I'm Jan
minutes.
Schmitz, and I represent Indigo on the commission. I'm a graduate civil engineer with a law degree, and my first job was as a weapons engineer for Huntington. And that was right after the 6-Day War. The U.S. found that they didn't have something that the Israelis did, which was a runway cratering munition. And so I was on a team that developed a runway cratering munition for U.S. inventory. So I sort of knew how to blow up runways before I knew how to build them. I spent most of my career outside of the United States. I was involved in the development of airports in Saudi Arabia, in Riyadh, and Dammam. I was the program director, lived in Hong Kong for 8 years, and was the program director on the government side for the new airport in Hong Kong. And I played around with airports in the US. The last one I worked on was heading up the capacity enhancement program at Philadelphia International. But I capped my career with something that was outside of airports, but it was really a fantastic opportunity. I was the program director for the Panama Canal expansion.
Isn't that's impressive?
And moved back to the U.S. Just about 2.5 years ago. And found myself here.
Great, thank you.
Very impressive.
Very interesting. Patricia,
Yes.
there you go.
Patricia Breslin, and that's a hard act for folks. My past history is a little bit eclectic with the hospitality industry, neighborhoods, tourism, emergency planning, and transportation. And I thought some of those affiliations could help with this process. My first lesson was playing well with others, and I was born in Massachusetts, the oldest daughter of 12 children. So we all played together and argued together nicely. And we all played musical instruments and all went to college.
Wow.
So kudos to my
That
parents.
is,
My educational background, BA in English, MA in theater. I came west to UCLA's MFA theater, and then moved on to the American Conservatory Theater, where I studied with some of the finest. My path to the Airport Commission is a different one. I made my home in San Francisco for about 30 years, and when I moved here and when I was there, I worked in the hospitality industry to fund my acting at that time. But I moved up in the ranks from bartender to bookkeeper to general manager of some of the finest French restaurants in San Francisco. In the mid-'80s, I made two decisions. One, not to move from San Francisco, and two, that I wanted to pursue the hospitality career. So lucky for me, there was a lot of change in the air, and laws were changing. Human resources overtook personnel. And so I became involved in human resources, separation issues, hiring, firing, compliance and liability issues, and things like that. And I was fortunate enough to be offered opportunities with two large restaurant groups. One was Spectrum Foods, and they grew from 8 to 15 California locations. And Real Restaurants, where I was their human resource director, and they grew from 5 to 22 locations throughout the Western Hemisphere. It was at Real Restaurants I became involved with government activity, and I was on the hospitality seat of the workers' comp panel with Jackie Spear, employer representatives for the Industrial Welfare Wage Commission, and a member of the Workers' Comp Advisory Committee. And then later I was recruited by the Golden Gate Restaurant Association as their executive director, which connected more city hall partnerships and other with businesses and neighborhoods. So I served, just as an example, on a lot of boards and commissions, such as I was one of the founding members for the San Francisco Taxi Commission. I was on their living wage task force, Safe Streets and Neighborhoods Task Force, Good Neighbor Policy Board, Citywide Emergency Planning, which was amazing because we had no real emergency planning. We started from the ground up. And the Rate Fairness Board, representing the hot users, the hospitality industry. San Francisco is very small, and businesses and neighborhoods and the city all work together, which is very similar to Palm Springs. We're a small city and we have partnerships with everyone. So I felt that was a benefit for me in this arena. I work closely with the Chamber, the Convention and Visitors Bureau, and the large and small business, and had a strong connection with the San Francisco Airport, especially since I work so much with the hotels. So my past kind of, I thought, came together. I worked with the TOT, the airline crew charge issues. I worked with a number of relationships with the San Francisco Airport Director and with the consulates, which when I first talked to Tom, but I'm getting a feeling for what this commission does, I thought it would be great to connect with the airport and the consulates. In the event, in an emergency, we need to get people out of town, and we worked with the hotels on that too after, which I'd love to talk to you about too. So my past history in the hospitality industry, neighborhoods, tourism, I hope all come together with some plan here that I can fit into. And that's why I'm here.
Well, great, thank you, Patricia, very helpful. I'm learning a lot after doing this, and we have 2 more to go, and we'll finish those off at the next meeting, and then everybody will have a chance to introduce themselves. Tom, introductions and presentations.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We do have a presentation today by Fred Bell from the Palm Springs Air Museum, one of our greatest tourism attractions. Why don't you take some time and give an update? Microphone.
Well, good morning. Some of you I know, some of you I don't know. My name is Fred Bell. I am the Vice Chairman of the Palm Springs Air Museum. I've been involved in the facility since 1999 as a board member. We were a board-run facility, so I'm the board member in charge of operations, and I've actually been in charge of overall operations. January 1st will be 10 years, so it's been a while. We have 61 aircraft under roof now. We are a 100,000 square foot facility roughly. We have 320 docents. We are considered in our operating sphere to be one of the top 5 facilities in the United States. CNN said we were one of the top 14 in the world. We were very lucky to be on that list because all the other ones are government run. So we were on the list with Uvar Hazy and some of the Smithsonian and the Air Force facilities. We were surprised we even made that list. We've been growing quite a bit the last 5 years, and part of that has been building out Bob Pond, who started the Air Museum, his original vision for the facility and the leasehold where the facility was originally entitled. That includes the Miles hangar, which is a 20,000 square foot hangar addition that we did a couple of years ago. And that was, we did a long range plan. We operate on a 3-year business plan, and we did a long range plan that looked out 7 years. And one of the things that we realized was that if we didn't expand and change our collection, we would essentially become a Civil War museum, if that makes any sense, where we're extremely dated and we couldn't keep up with demographics. So as we started to change, we're looking at the changing demographics and the greatest generation passing into history, which is our collection is founded primarily on World War II. We've been continually updating. And so that's why you see us continue to expand and expand the collection. To give you an idea, we started with 14 aircraft, which were all World War II airplanes. And what we have now is we have everything from the Wright Flyer, the replica of the Wright Flyer, which hangs above the doorway as you come in, to, in March, we will take delivery of an F-117A from the United States Air Force, and that will bring us up to about Desert Storm. We're fairly current. We do have an F-16 and F-18 in the inventory. They're on loan from the Navy and the Air Force, but we'll continue to update, and you'll see us continue to move along. We are an industrial facility and not what we call a mausoleum, which is something more like what the Uvar Hazy would be, which is everything is dead. We operate 6 to 7 airplanes a year in various things. We go out to about 10 air shows a year, and we see roughly about 2.5 million people at those air shows when we go out. So we operate under the name Palm Springs, so the Palm Springs Air Museum, so there is some nice branding when we go to those things, and I will continue to do that as well. The next phase that we're working on, I brought it up, is we have pulled the grading permit. Thank you. First of all, I want to thank Tom Nolan, Dave Ruddy, and all the staff. And we have a really great base of operations here and wonderful people to work with, and the people in the commission. And a lot of these conversations started 4 or 5 years ago. That none of this just happens. And so I want to thank all of you and all the staff and everybody who has been so supportive. There are times when we come in and you look at us and go, you want a what with a what? But ultimately we kind of figure it out and you help us navigate it. And being a unique facility that we are, we are a little bit different, so we don't really fit in a cookie cutter box, and we do have to come in and say, okay, we're thinking about doing this, and how do we make that happen? And every time the city has been helpful, and the commission has been helpful, and the staff, and I just can't thank everybody enough. You guys, we wouldn't be where we are today if it weren't for your support, so thank you very much. We have pulled the permit for the South Road, which will be the Norman L. Sirota Way. Sirota Way is named after a glider pilot who was severely injured before D-Day, and so we think that's a fitting name for that road, at least that's what we're calling it. That will give us a south entry from Gene Autry, which is critically important if you know the facility, because we only have one ingress-egress point at the museum. And if we ever had a problem, and we have had problems, we're landlocked in there. We cannot get anything in there. And the biggest concern for us is emergency vehicles. So this will give us, this is not a road that will be used all the time for us. We view it as an emergency access road, but we've talked to fire and EMS, and they're supportive of this. And the primary reason for it is to give us another access point out of the facility, and also to give emergency crews the ability to get in the facility if they can't get in through Tamers, which is a little bit further up. So you'll see us blading on that probably the next day or so. We'll actually be turning earth. And again, thank you to the city and all the staff that's made that happen. And that agreement, by the way, goes back 5 years. It took us 4 years to get through Caltrans on a road to nowhere. It's a cul-de-sac with no outlet, with nothing, and we're still trying to get we have the grading permit, and we have the no comment letter from Caltrans, but we're still trying to get the encroachment permit resolved. It is absolutely the most painful thing I've ever been through, but we're gonna get it done. The staff has been incredibly supportive, and so we thank you on that. We yesterday released the final drawings for the Houston Pavilion. If you remember Jim Houston, that is named after him, and that is a facility that will go just south of the newly constructed Miles hangar. That is just under 5,000 feet. That will house the F-117A that will come in. We will make the restoration on that. I had to go up to Tonopah, which is Area 51, and actually go into the bunker where they had those aircraft stored. The most surreal experience I've ever had in my entire life. I will tell you, once you get in a facility like that, through 3 rings of security and men with guns, you realize the government owns you, and you may not make it out.
Encounter any alien?
I did not see any alien, but I have one funny story, if I can take 1 minute.
Yes, please.
I was in Sedona, and we did the UFO tour, and they gave us a shirt that said, it had an alien on it with his finger out, and it says, "I got probed in Sedona."
That's cute.
For some reason, my wife held on to that shirt, and the day I was gonna fly up to Tonopah, she had laid that shirt out for me. She said, "Won't you think it would be funny if you wore that shirt when we went to Tonopah?" And I said, I'm not sure that these men have a sense of humor. And that was absolutely true, because when I stepped through the blockhouse going in, the first thing you realize is that everybody's armed, and that you can't get within 200 miles of this place without somebody seeing you. It's actually quite amazing. The aircraft that we're getting, the tail number on the F-117 is 833, which each aircraft has a name, like an unexpected guest or whatever, Nightwing or whatever. This one is called the Black Devil, which is an interesting name. It's got a big terrorizing bat on it, and it's a play on the SR-71, which was called the Haibu, which was Japanese, which was Night Devil, so it's a play on words. We will rebuild the airplane, and unlike some of the other ones that are going to be stored outside, this will be in an interpretive center, which I know the Air Force is really happy about. So we've gone to drawings. We need to go back through the city and get this done, but I anticipate there won't be any trouble with this. This is an extremely simple construction compared to what we did with Miles, which was a major undertaking. And with that, we will have built out our leasehold. We'll be just over 100,000 feet. Things on the horizon that we would like to come back and talk to the commission about is a second entry onto the airport at some point, as opposed to what we have now, which is a single gate, because we have the same problem as we have on the other side, is we only have one point of entry. That's a conversation for a later date, but we will come back at some point and be looking, we'll figure out how to fund it, we'll pay for it, but we'd like another.
Why do you need a second?
Same problem, if we have an issue and that entry exit is blocked, we have no way to the airport. And also, as we turn airplanes and operate airplanes on the ramp, a U-shaped flow, in other words, they come in and they go, is much easier for us than taking them, turning them around and putting them out. So that's, but that's for another day. On business operations, we're up 10% year over year, so we're doing well, and we have, just to give you an idea, we have increased, and Tom knows this, we've increased our attendance 100% over 9 years. So we've averaged a 10% increase consistently for the last 9 years. So
So what is the total attendance now?
roughly about 150,000, anywhere from 130, 150,000, depending on what we do with group sales, which is a little bit of a variable. That is, to give you an idea, about double or triple any other facility in the region. It is not the tram, which is doing 500,000 people a year, but it is, in our world, that's a fairly healthy attendance number. And so we hope we can continue to keep that going. We think the F-117 will be pretty heavily attended. And so I just wanted to, we haven't been here, I haven't been here in, Tom, about 3 years, 2 or 3 years. And so I just wanted to come over and give you a quick brief as to where we're at.
How many events do you host every year?
I was going to ask the same thing.
We're anywhere from about 15 to 18, and where we're headed on events is we're actually trying to consolidate the number and do fewer events, but increase our yield, in other words, what our rental rate is, and do fewer so that one of the challenges we have, people don't realize it, but a Hellcat is worth about $3 million. To move the Hellcat for a $500 christening doesn't make a lot of sense. So there was a time when the museum was actually doing more events for fewer dollars, if you believe that or not, but now we're headed in another direction.
I've been to 4 events there just in the last few months, so.
Yeah, and so and the Miles was designed as a 1,200 person occupancy. It has modern fire ingress, egress. It was really, we had events in mind, and we did that. So you'll see that most of the things we do are in the Miles hangar. This is the most current facility we have. But we're headed in that direction. Fewer things, getting the yield up.
When you built Miles, wasn't there a restaurant component as part of the original plan?
There's a cafe in the facility
Oh, there is.
now. We looked, very good question. On the south end, we originally, remember that design a long time ago, looked at a restaurant with an elevated thing so you can look down into it. Honestly, what I found after going through entitlement with the Riverside County Airport Commission and dealing with what land use is around the facility, it would be probably virtually impossible to entitle that facility. I think we can build out the leasehold, but from an entitlement standpoint and the density that they want around airports now, the density in the buildings. My background is I am a builder, and I was the CEO for the Building Industry Association for 10 years here. On entitlement, I don't think you can get it done. And I didn't realize that going into it. But since 9/11, things have changed. So the restaurant went out the window because it wasn't part of the original, or wouldn't have been part of the original vision. We'll continue to operate that little cafe in there, and we keep the prices down. We don't attraction price that. And the reason for that is the docents eat their lunch there. And we're providing a service with the cafe. It's not to make money. So, and one thing on events, our dollars, our insurance, our electric, our everything, we're only open from 10 to 5. Our costs are 24 hours. So one of the things that events allow us to do is spread our costs over the facility and drive revenue. And that's one, from my facility management background, that's something we absolutely had to do. We have a $250,000 a year payment to the trust on the Pond aircraft that goes towards those airplanes will eventually become part of the collection. And so imagine we have a $250,000 construction loan payment every year if we make $1 And so that's a real challenge for us. It was a challenge in the beginning, and it continues to be a business challenge. It's one that we don't worry about anymore because we got the business working, but it is just a raw fact of how that business was structured. So it's an exciting time for us. Long range, I think at some point we're going to come back to Tom and that 10 acres to the south, flat space for storage for larger airplanes, if the city agrees that we can do that. But that, again, that's long range. That's probably where I see us going, because we cannot house larger aircraft. You know, anything above a 727, we just don't have the room. We don't have the ability even to turn it. And so at some point, if we're going to want to continue to expand the collection, we'll have a conversation with the city and say, okay, but how do you feel about this? They would all be inert, and there would be no structures there, but it would be another way for us to house larger airplanes.
I'm talking about membership in the Air Museum.
Membership in the Air Museum, we have 1,400 members. One of our biggest concerns that we had originally, and we are transitioning, is we were founded by primarily Greatest Generation folks, the World War II guys. Bob Tom was a World War II Navy pilot. We only have 40 of those folks left in the cadre of 320 docents. So you can see, at one time they were almost all Greatest Generation. But you got to realize those folks now are between about 93 and 100 years old, and we're losing them. And Bob Friend, who we fly the P-51, who was a Tuskegee Airman, was a dear friend of mine. He was 100, we just lost him. The sad fact is we're losing those people. But our membership has stayed steady. We've been growing the membership about 5 or 6% a year. We do 30 programs at noon on Saturday every week. That's what's driving this membership. Any other questions?
No? No other questions?
I have one other thing that I will give you if you need it on promotion. We were donated 4 movie cockpits, F-18, Harrier 16, and the F-117. We also have a thing called Ride-'em Copter, which is a Bell Jet Ranger that the Art Museum used that's covered in sequins and there's a chandelier in it and everything else. If you need those things are portable. If you need them for promotion or you want to drop something, the city wants to drop something to promote the airport, you're more than welcome to use those. Tom knows about them, and I heard marketing committee, which always perks up my ears. And you know, we can put those down anywhere. They're totally inert. We put signage on them, and people are really interested in those things. The Harrier was the front nose section out of True Lies with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and they've been in multiple films, Independence Day, things like that. But the other one, the F-117, was in Executive Decision, which we have in the lobby, and that was Kurt Russell, where they climb up in the 747 and fight the terrorists and all that stuff. Well, that was that movie cockpit. So they're kind of interesting, and they light up. They do all they're completely. We can set them up so they look interesting. So if you ever need that stuff, darken our doorway. We're happy to. If you need artifacts, if you need something to promote the airport, let us know, because we got a lot of really interesting stuff over there. I really appreciate your time. I know you're all busy, and have a wonderful day.
Great, Brad, thank you very much. Any other introductions or presentations?
Well, I have a few items. The art is up in the regional concourse as approved by the commission and approved by council. Can you?
Father's one of the renovations, he's 92.
No, I don't. I'm in that terminal a lot, and I really looking at it.
It does, it really, it adds, that's all I have to report. I'll make it a little briefer today and let you proceed with the rest of it.
Okay, all right. Then we move on, David, to the city manager report.
Good morning, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple things briefly to note. As you know, we have a couple new council members coming in. They'll be sworn in on December the 4th. Actually, the next meeting, I'd like to bring them over and just introduce them.
That would be great, absolutely.
Okay, if that's possible.
Yes.
So just, and Tom will explain more, but obviously, as you know, there's a lot going on. Besides getting the bids finalized for the concessions out on the street, that project, and then the 2 construction projects, the security and then particularly season. So just staying very focused on that. But I do want to update you on the 2 positions that we're hiring council approved in the budget. So the marketing position is posted. It's posted and advertised. We have Ralph Anderson, who is the recruitment company that's helping us do it. Actually, they're going to be doing all of their advertising in the very near future, but the position's posted and they're out there trying to find candidates. That's one. And second, on the engineering position, that is posted as well. We're receiving applications. As we get them, we're reviewing to see if they're even meeting our threshold we want to go forward. We haven't received anything yet. We don't have a recruiter for that position. If we can't get anything, at some point we may want to consider that, but it's still early in the process, so I'll keep you updated. As soon as we get candidates to interview, we'll interview them as we get them, and we'll get the appropriate people involved over here at the airport.
That's terrific news. We're delighted to hear that.
Thank you.
We really are. And so you're going to bring Dennis and Grace in at the December meeting? Sure. That'd be great.
If they're available,
That'd be perfect. Okay, that'd be great to meet the 2 new. Grace is from District 1 and Dennis Woods is from District 2, so those 2 districts. And then Jeff Kors was reelected in District 3. So, very good. Moving on, Mark, on Budget and Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. Just real briefly, let's go to page 3 of the financial report and give everyone a brief update on the 4 funds that we have. First of all, we have the CFCs, the customer facility charge, and year-to-date, those revenues are just over $400,000, which is an increase of over 46% compared to last year at this time. In those funds, we, as you recall, awarded a contract for the schematic design to Gensler for $1.5 million. So we've had our kickoff meeting with the rental car agencies, and we will start seeing some expenses in that category. You notice the expenditures there have been zero for quite some time, but Gensler is now engaged and is actively starting on the schematic design for the rental car facilities. On the PFC project, again, David just mentioned, we have the Tickle Wing project. It is underway. We received our first invoice last month. Keeping in mind that project was planned for about 3 years. We started in 2016 to do an overview of the plan, went through the PFC process with the FAA, which took quite a lengthy period of time. And the reason I mention that is in about 2 years, we should be thinking about what our next PFC project should be. Because of the length of time it takes to get everything taken care of, all the notifications and the approvals from the federal agencies, it's quite a lengthy process, and we certainly, at that time, will have extra funds to finance something in the future. Fund 415 is our maintenance and operating fund, which we track very closely, and those revenues are up just over 19% compared to last year at this time. So a very strong gain. A lot of that has to do with passenger increases and the positive growth that we've seen. Our concession revenues that David alluded to, the RFP, we did an extension for the current contracts, and in the extension we're increasing our percentage that we get from 8% to 12%, so we will see some increases in concession revenues even though we haven't begun the new RFP process quite yet. And then 416, our capital projects, we have quite a list of those things going on. The TSA area has been under that category, and that has started as well. So if you see some construction going on around the airport, that will continue, and we expect to have those done in the next couple of months. So at the bottom of the page, the restricted fund balances are all very strong. CFCs at $22.5 million. PFCs, we have $2.1 million. We will see our first interest payment in December, and then we'll see our first principal payment next June. So those funds are tracking accordingly. And the M&O funds, again, a very good balance of $6.3 million. So everything is looking very positive and following the budget very closely.
Terrific. Thank you, Mark. Tom, do you have anything to add to that?
I do not.
Okay. Any questions from commissioners? No? Okay. Thank you, Mark. We'll move on then to Peter. Local marketing campaign presentation by the marketing committee.
Well, we had a really great marketing committee, very vibrant, great discussions, and I'm very proud to say that truly everyone contributed. It was a great meeting. We did approve the budget that we are recommending to the full commission today. And we have Mary Jo here, who made a great presentation, and it was so informative that we felt the entire commission should hear it. So I thank Mary Jo.
Thank you. Good morning. As Peter said, I'm Mary Jo Ginther with Palm Springs Bureau of Tourism. The Bureau of Tourism is part of a group called ASM Global. Some of you may have read the news of the merger between SMG and AEG into ASM Global. We are now part of the team of the world's largest network of convention centers, music venues, and sporting venues in the world. So with all the public relations and the marketing support that goes with that. So we're very happy to be here and excited to be part of the airport marketing program again this year. Based on the information that we received early on, we worked with several partners to discuss the direction that the marketing committee felt we should go and to attain not only the goals that you as a group are trying to achieve, but also to enhance that direction and provide more value. The goal that we were given was pretty clear and direct, and that is to create awareness of Palm Springs Airport. And this is, again, this is not to visitors that are coming in to Palm Springs Airport necessarily, but residents of the Coachella Valley and the outlying communities to use Palm Springs Airport. So that is the goal of this program. Our role in all of this is to create that awareness and creatively inspire visitors to think about using PSP rather than alternatives. Again, we followed the direction of the chair of the marketing committee in that there was a desire to do what hasn't been done before and provide a vehicle for ongoing communication from PSP to residents of the Coachella Valley and the closely outlying areas. With that, there was a discussion that there's a need to develop an improved web landing page. Eventually, everything leads to your web page, so you have to have a good, robust page to begin with. Then to create content for social media and digital marketing. And then, of course, to implement that social and digital ad media plan to distribute that content. Before I go into detail on each of these strategies, I would like to introduce or talk about JNS Next Media. They are a local company that has grown over the years to not only include marketing and public relations, but web content, social media, digital marketing. They work with many clients within the Coachella Valley, including ourselves, including the Greater Palm Springs CBB, Babasir Bay, and so on many of the other cities as well. So they have a very good understanding of our market. So they would be working with us as the partner on this project. We've used PalmSpringsAirport.com for the past few years for the airport marketing program. It points to a page within the city's site, and that city's site currently looks like this.
But it won't look like that for much longer, so we're gonna get rid of that hideous colors, just so you know.
So our job, part of our job would be to work with the city and also to create a more robust page. So some of the examples that were given to us to look at and that we researched, San Jose here was mentioned as an example. A few more examples include Oakland, Long Beach, and you can see in all of these examples, the content is pretty common. They're adding different pieces and parts of information that they would like to get out to visitors and to the residents. Our goal then would be to combine the look and functions of these sites into a look and feel that's compatible with the city's site and with the changes that they're making.
And so if I could just interject, it may be time now to separate the airport's website from the city. Clearly there can be links, but to have a separate one like something like this may be, and if that's where you want to go, I think that's what we should do. But I'll let you guys make that decision.
Well,
Do we need council approval for that, or
No.
can you approve that?
Yeah.
Because I think
I
that's.
think it should be
Okay.
separate. Yeah, it gets buried in the
Okay.
city.
Yeah, that's good.
It's interactive too.
Okay.
Good.
well, and how interesting
That's the
that you should
minutes
mention that.
That'd be great, that's perfect.
Very interesting that our city manager just mentioned that, because the discussion actually was to create a microsite that lives outside of the city site. It can certainly point back into a page, so if you're going to the city site first, it can take you over. As a matter of fact, any city could have that link on their website that would point you over to the airport. So let me show you a little bit about how this would work. So, as I said, we've used Palm Springs. We would be using a company called Centro. And with Centro, we would retarget, let me see if I'm on the right side. Yeah. So here we would develop the microsite that would, as I said, be very similar to the look and feel of the cities. We would set up the URL, which is palmspringsairport.com. As I mentioned, it lives outside of the city site. It could be intertwinable in terms of look and function. It could also be a standalone. So you can access the site directly from any of the city sites. You can also access this site directly, and this is where our work would come in, through the social and digital programs. So JNS would set up Google Analytics, so we would be able to track the incoming, outgoing traffic, time on site, all those things that we could deliver to you on a monthly basis or deliver to the marketing committee so that they could track the success of this program. We would set up social accounts for Palm Springs for PSP. And hearing the needs of both the marketing program and balancing that with the airport resources, we would initially create these accounts to be outgoing information only. So we would develop the messaging, the advertising, all the display that's outgoing, and the recipients are receiving it in much the same way as a digital ad. So whether you're seeing this through Facebook or whether you're seeing this through a display ad, you're getting it in much the same way. So we're using the social media platforms to deliver the messages. So in this way, it's really more about information that's going out to these folks and less about fans and likes and that sort of thing. Again, we have the accounts, but as people are on social media, they'd be directed to the landing page, and these can operate as platforms for outgoing information. Now, at a future point, if you, as a group, decide, well, we would like to add the function of it being exchangeable, and we would like to have fans and likes and all that sort of thing, you can change that at the time. But right now, for the needs of everyone, let's just say your new marketing person comes in next year and would like to add that to the program. They have the option to do that, but all the programs are up and running, all the information and the messaging is going out. So you'll see in the next few slides how this fits into the broader strategy. So the next step is to determine the messaging. And with that, myself, my team, JNS, we can serve as the liaison between airport staff, the marketing committee, et cetera, to outline the messages that you feel are the most important. Everywhere from the broader taglines that you see up at the top to the more specific messages that you see on the lower half of the screen that would, reasons that they would want to use and fly PSP. So we've set up the social media accounts, we've determined the messaging, and we're turning that into creative ads. So now we need to determine the audience that we're trying to reach. Geographically, this is easy. We've already determined it's the Coachella Valley, and it's about a 25-mile ring around the Coachella Valley. So if you're in Yucca Valley, for example, you could still get these messages. Demographically, we really want to reach everyone that is searching for flights elsewhere. Perhaps they're looking at vacations, hotels elsewhere, and outbound flight markets, etc. So how does this all work? The platform we would use is called Centro. Centro, as you can see, integrates, and it's hard for me to see the screen, so I'm going to step out here for a moment. Social media, we all know what those are. National publications, it targets local publications, online travel agencies such as Expedia, Booking.com, etc. Connected TV, which is streaming TV, Pandora, and search engine marketing. So that would be sort of Google AdWord kind of programs that go on. Centro is one of these new technologies that brings all of that together into one platform. So as we take those messages and we put them out, part of your budget is going to directing it through social media. Some of it may pop up as a 30-second spot for the airport on connected TV before you're going to watch your Hulu program. The next one may say to you on Pandora a message about flying PSP, but we've already reduced the pool geographically and demographically down to exactly who you're looking for. How do they do this? Of course, they start with using thousands of behavioral touch points, activities, your interests, your behavior, your intent to travel, all of those kinds of things. They then retarget current and past users. You've all been, you've all enjoyed getting another ad because you were shopping for something that was similar, and they've retargeted you to come back to remind you. And then as we go through this program, we're able to retarget the higher producing demographics and start to look at those and see who are the people that are really paying attention and go back to those. Before I go on to the next slide, I just wanted to mention, at our marketing meeting, we talked a little bit about social influencers, and we certainly can incorporate that as well into this program. The questions would be, what messages are really relevant to their audience? The whole point of using a social influencer is to not only reach out to our own pool that we're targeting, but their own audience that we may never reach otherwise. So we have to determine what messages are relevant. Certainly messages like, the JetBlue flight is going to be starting on this date. Those kinds of things are great messages to work with social influencers, and they can talk about why it's such a great idea to fly PSP. We also are working on a program called Uniquely Palm Springs. This is a program that we are working to highlight the unique businesses, the locally owned and operated things that sort of make Palm Springs like no place else. The reason why I mention that is because we are now culling a new list of in-market contacts, media, social influencers that we can then use in this program as well to enhance it. So how do we track the results? I'll step over here again. For social media insights, of course, this would come back on a monthly basis to Tom and his staff, as well as the marketing committee. You get your impressions, your reach, your digital display, banner ads, you're able to get results. Of course, if we run video, we get results on that, because you can not only see how many people watched your video, but you can see how many people watched it 100% of the time, 75% of the time, 50%, and so on. So you know really pretty clearly if your video ad is working or not, and you can change it. Pandora, as we mentioned, how many people actually listen all the way through, and Connected TV, of course, is part of that with the video.
What is Connected TV again?
Connected TV is streaming video.
Oh.
So, when you go to watch your movie and it has a little ad first, that's what
Okay.
we're talking about.
All right.
So lastly, the budget, the way that this would break down, we were given a budget, I'm sorry, it's actually $69,000, not $70,000. So the web development and the build would be $5,000. For them to build, for JNS to build the back end, meaning the search engine optimization, you have to be ADA compliant, quality assurance and so forth, that would be another $2,500. We actually are talking to our partner over there across the room, the CVB, to help us with the video production portion of it. And so that cost would be somewhere around $5,000 to get a new spot, and that would include actually us coming out back here and taking some new footage as well, which would be great. It's always helpful to have that. The creative production, we have display ads, we've got Facebook ads, there's a whole library of ads that those need to be developed, and messaging to go through social media. And the rest of that would go directly to the campaign. The idea was that this would last until the end of your fiscal year. So for those of you who have worked with Google Ads or anything like that, it's an auction. And so you go on and you auction for your space in the digital world, and we'll find out as we go through whether this is enough, whether it suffices to get through 7 months, whether you need more to get the maximum benefit, and we would shorten the program a little. but we would be able to tell that as we go through the program. So with that, there's a few people I wanted to thank. Simply Peter for helping us with some direction to get started. Colleen and Bob over here at the CVB with some initial discussions on how we can all work together to make this program the best it can be for the airport. As always, Tom and David Wells and Gary Sage from JNS Media. So with that.
Nice job, thank you.
Any questions? Any questions? Yes, Rob.
Question on the social media, on the digital, is there an opportunity for people to, if it goes out, all the digital messaging goes out under ESP, and is there an opportunity for people to post, or is it passive, they are not able to post anything? Because if they do post, then there's a potential issue of people, posting things about the airport or their experiences, etc., which then would require also a response from our side.
So you've sort of hit on the core point, and that was the discussion as we went through that, and that is, do you want it to be interactional or do you want it to be informational? So what we understood is that to begin this program, it would be informational.
So they will not have an opportunity.
Correct.
Exactly.
Now, at any point along the way, you say, we'd like to enhance this program, and the marketing manager says, I'm a social media whiz, and I don't mind being available 24/7. But it would start this way, and that allows us to get out all of the messaging that you're trying to get out. Yes? Any other questions?
Yeah, I know the volumes will be small, we're a relatively small valley, but is there an opportunity to create ad space on the website that could generate revenue for the program to help by us to create more ads that we pay for?
So the answer is yes, there is the possibility, especially if we sort of followed what David's thought was, and that is that you're a standalone site. So you can go to Google Ads, for example, and you could say, we'd like to build, or we would go to Google Ads and say, we'd like to build ads, and you get, half a cent for anybody that clicks on the ad on your site, that sort of thing. So the difficulty is with an engine that big, the advertisers are a bit out of your control. So that's the only drawback that I would say.
May I interject? Tom, would you just quickly explain that for the FAA restrictions on advertising that you explained to us at the marketing?
Correct. The FAA, because we're the recipient of so much federal grant, anything that is going to be available for someone to benefit off the airport has to involve a public bid process.
So we could research it, it may or may not be an option, but.
But it has potential at some
But it
point.
has potential, exactly.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So Peter, you're going to move us to whatever the recommendation is?
Well, the recommendation is to approve. I don't think we need a second, because the marketing committee already has approved it. So
As presented.
we need to vote on accepting this presentation.
Now,
Move to
is our
accept.
budget 70,000? It is, okay. So now it just comes before the full, right. So you want to make that
Yes.
motion?
Yes.
Okay, is there a second? Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Unanimously supported. Thank you, Peter.
Can you give it back to the presentation?
Very good work. So now we move on to the executive director and staff reports.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, everyone, for attending today with your busy schedules. So, when that's up, so in the meantime, the terminal renovation, if you haven't noticed, there is construction going on in the terminal building, and it's going to be 4 locations. Number 1 is the expansion of the checkpoint. Number 2 is the relocation of the law enforcement officers, and 3 will be involved in the car rental extension of the counter. So there is active construction. We're well underway with that, primarily demolition at this point. Are we ready? Yeah? No? It loading? Okay. So we will proceed with...
It's up now.
It is, okay, very good. So you saw the art. This is, there are some minor concession improvements being done at the volition of the existing concessionaires. This is a kiosk that is set up on the Bono Concourse that about, if you looked at it from the side, that everything was pulled down, but it allows someone to make a point of purchase. We'll have some minor refreshments and some other snacks for them to be able to purchase. On the other side of the equation, as you walk up the or ride up the escalators to the right, we've always had that nice little area. Well, there are dynamics to concessions. As you know, if you have a seating for 4 people, one person sits there, it ties the table up. So what HMS did, if you look in the background, you can see there, right next to the bushes, there's a brand new counter here that was never there. You can seat about probably 20 people. So that allows individuals to go up. It doesn't tie up the tables. Probably the best venue in the United States where you could sit outside with palm trees adorning the area, looking at mountains. That might win an award for HMS somewhere, somehow. So in regards to that, new seating is it?
Yes.
I will, Mr. Chairman, I won't mention what you said about that.
I like it.
It's wonderful, isn't it? Beautiful. Here we go, up on the Bono Concourse.
Does anyone notice that they're a different color than the other chairs?
Does anybody notice a different color? No?
Slightly, but hey,
Yeah.
don't tell anyone.
What's the difference?
It was a 1980s, how do you describe the color?
I don't know.
It's- Which was for its day, but as the city manager just said, this is astounding.
Timeless.
Are these the new seats that have power underneath them?
Yes, there are, yeah.
Okay,
yes,
great.
There are power underneath, you can see a little power circuit.
It doesn't necessarily mean it's
So
power
it's
underneath them.
much better.
Any fun that they do.
Much better. So passenger boarding bridge project has begun. The consultant was out here. I had the pleasure of spending a couple hours out there. You can see things like the cracking wire here. You know, if we're going to proceed with a rehabilitation, and we're also going to have the bid alternate to buy new one when you see how that comes in. But it was fascinating to see how these the metal itself on these bridges is though it was preserved, but you can see the wiring. Things like that. They do work. Drive motors will be replaced with modern drive motors, use less energy, be more reliable, other cabling and so forth. Here's the chairman of the Noise Committee and I have been working over the last couple of years, and one of the complaints we've had, Jeff, in the past was the loud whine coming, the whining noise, W-H-I-N-E, not W-I-N-E, coming from the airport. And this is a massive compressor for air conditioning underneath the bridge. Some of these have up to 5 compressors. They're monsters. And they're as loud as all get out. The more modern units will be, of course, whisper, not noisy at all, more energy efficient and so forth. You can see how easily that bolts on and you can put that on. Underneath the bridge you have the cables that have to expand. This is a telescopic, a 3-pier. These 55,000-pound monstrosities have to flex based on the size of the aircraft. This all would be replaced to chase for the cable. And that's it. I thought I had more exciting photos and everything else.
That was exciting.
Very exciting.
That was.
Almost exciting is the new colors of the chair.
So we're going to hear more about it when you get the actual...
Oh, of course, yes, the results and so on. Pavement condition inventory, there are staff out there over the last couple of weeks analyzing every square foot of our pavement to assess as a baseline where it stands for future grant funds and so forth, and we can monitor and maintain our pavements. Car rental project has been kicked off. Gensler Consultants is on board. The first and primary task there is to present to the car rentals a comprehensive survey of what their needs are today, historically, and in the future. So the sizing of the facility, that's a key component, is what size will handle the needs for up to the next 20 years on the car rental. That's probably the most important. Designing a parking structure isn't rocket scientist, but sizing it is very key. Airport Capital Improvement Program, every year we present to the commission. We'll be meeting with the FAA in the next couple of weeks. They'll give us input. We'll bring that back to the commission in December. The Assistant Deputy Director of Maintenance and Operations, Steve Bowser, has been here 10 years. He is retiring and going back to the Midwest. He is retiring, and his last day is in mid-December, so that leaves another vacancy, which we've got a lot going on here, so it's going to be essential to focus on what we need to do on a day-to-day basis. So that concludes my reports, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any questions for Tom? No. Next item, Commissioner requests or reports. Any No?
Can we cover the issue of the marketing committee meeting quarterly now? Is that the appropriate time?
Yeah, I mentioned that in my remarks too.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. We're gonna do that.
I have one question, actually on behalf of Commissioner Corcoran, who can't be here because he's hosting a PBS cruise in India. But he wanted to know what the process is going to be on the concession in terms of how we can help local business participate in the education. Where are we on that and how do we go about that?
Mm-hmm. I'd like to answer that.
Yeah, Tom.
We, the council also mentioned the same thing, to make sure that we do a community outreach and to describe to them what the opportunities will exist and to allow local, there are numerous ways that local can participate. We're going to have a set aside for a location for local competition. Not specifically, everyone can compete as well as the large concessionaires. Secondly, they can partner with other large concessionaires. So we'll do some type of outreach and we'll work and figure out how to do that. It's going to take us several months to develop this document, which has to be comprehensive now that council has voted on it. So.
And sort of an assistance with the process itself, because a lot of people may not be really comfortable.
Yes, precisely. And our consultant will help us lead what exactly we could say in that and provide that type of assistance.
What I would suggest is, well, first of all, specifically, when will we have the RFP back from the consultant?
Mark, do you want to comment?
We don't have a specific date yet. We're working back. So I don't want to go out on a limb and make a commitment that the consultant can't meet, but early next year.
How about halfway out on a limb?
I'm sorry, what?
Halfway out on a limb?
We're pushing them. We
Well,
understand.
what's in the contract, what's in the deliverable contract? What's their timeframe?
It doesn't give a specific date. There are still some things that we need to get back to the consultant so they can develop the full details. There's some things with areas we're going to make available. We need to clearly define before the RFP goes out what we're going to have available and what the concessionaires.
Is there a subcommittee on this, Mr. Chairman?
No.
Well, I think if you, what I'd suggest, if we had a subcommittee, I think we should get that together as soon as possible with staff from across the street, and your staff and the subcommittee, just so we're all clear what's the next steps are, piece by piece on this, because this is a big deal and I don't want it to get away from us, and we can push the consultant, and we'll get some more specific answers. So if we do that, with regard to your specific question, what I think, because this is going to be, we can't really do anything until we get the RFP back and we know what we're dealing with. And I think what we would do is because of the complexity, for what we would offer for small businesses, which I presume will be local, but we'd have to do it for everyone, but we would actually help them create their bid. Now, we can't favoritize anyone, but we can offer that to everybody. And I think if we do that, then it will help them and it will keep us within the FAA.
Exactly.
Okay.
Right. That's great.
So if you could think about appointing a subcommittee on the concession, just because this is going to be
But wasn't that a part of the operations committee, Tom, anyway?
I think it was operations, so we can do
Okay,
that.
that's fine. So if we
I'll
can
follow
get that
up,
scheduled.
yeah, I'll follow up
we'll
with
get
a
through.
discussion with Tom, and then we'll
Okay.
move forward on that.
Thank you.
Understand.
Okay, any other commissioner requests or reports? Ralph?
Question. No, it's Tom, it was brought up in the past, I don't know when. I had a couple of comments from people who travel here a lot, and also especially in the summer, and they were asking me about shade protection at the taxi stand. And I think this had come up previously, and I'm not sure what the answer was at the time. But there seems to be a need for shade, especially in the summer. And you've got, I think the original idea was that taxis are being called very quickly, but I know that with the growth and with a lot of people all out there at once, you've got actually signs out there that allow 9 taxis to line up. Might be a good idea to take a look at the possibility of putting up a shade structure.
I assume that applies to rideshare as well.
Rideshare would be the same, yes.
Hey, how about this just as an idea? I mean, clearly that's long-term, that's a good thing. I have no idea historical issues we're
It-
gonna have to
it
get
does,
through.
that was my
But
thought.
in the meantime, what we could do is, you know, how we have umbrellas for when it
Yeah,
rains,
put
we could
together
have some
idea.
umbrellas there
Exactly.
for people to use, for a moment.
Yeah,
So
good
let's think
idea.
about that.
Or some temporary tables, but you're right, historical significance does have a role for that.
Okay. We'll see which committee that falls under. All right, any other questions? Thank you, Rob. Any other questions, recommendations? Okay, moving on to the report of the city council items. That be-
They're in your package.
They're in the package, okay. We don't need to talk about them. Any correspondence?
Can I ask a question about that? At the last meeting, we said that the city manager said that the recommendation we made about the amendments to the noise committee ordinance would be considered
That's right.
at the last city council meeting. I don't think they were.
No, the agenda was, I mean, at midnight, finally.
Okay.
So I think, Tom, what would be helpful, the next council meeting on the 4th is just a transition. The meeting on the 19th is just pretty full. So I think realistically that first or second meeting in January. So if you could reconstitute that information for us and get it on our agenda review, and then we can actually get a date.
Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you, Jeff, for reminding us of that. And no correspondence? No? Receive and file, we've got the October airline activity report. Before we hit adjournment, any other questions, comments? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? All in favor? Great. Good meeting.